Okay, hi everyone. So, my project is going to talk about my family history on my mom's side. My name is Emily Hensley, for those of you who don't know me. So I'm going to first off by just talking about my family. So that's me with the arrows pointed. This is my brother's wedding this last June. But the picture on the other side, that's my entire family on my mom's side. And so that's the family that I'm going to be talking about. And if you guys see, Candy is in the very far corner, and because she's married to my cousin. So I interviewed Fawn Farland, who is my grandma. She's the person that's pointed to in the arrow, on September 18th, 2020 at 1:58 p.m. That's a picture of the recording. I just did a recording of it, so I just got to listen to it all. Um, so this is like a quick, like a really small broken down family tree because my family is very big, and so I just kind of did the bare bones of it. So if you start with me, I have three siblings, and then my mom and my dad, and then my mom has two sisters, and they're both married with each two kids. And then her mom and dad are my grandparents. And then the people that I'll be talking about mostly is about my great grandma, who's my grandma's parents, Grandma and Grandpa Doolittle, Grace and Lee Doolittle. So I asked her about what her favorite story was that she heard growing up from her grandparents, and she said that she always was told this story about Rose Lake because that's where my great grandpa lived. And she always would say how about in their house they would have a separate little tiny room for the stove. And she said her grandma used to talk about how this stove would work because it was a wooden stove, so it was in a separate room because it would get so hot that they didn't want the whole house getting that hot. And it was a really cool story to listen to, and kind of like how much we've come from that time, and how happy she got when she talked about it, actually. So this is my great grandma. So this is Grace Doolittle. She's around 92 years old right now. That is a picture of when she was younger. And then that's a current picture of her right now. So she was actually born in England. Norfolk, England is where she is from. So the red is where it is in England. That's kind of a picture of what it looks like. And she grew up there and she lived there until she met my great grandpa. This is Lee Doolittle. He grew up in the Silver Valley, Kingston area for school, but he lived in Rose Lake, Idaho. These are like pictures of his. So this is my great grandpa accepting an award in England because he was a part of World War II. So he was in World War II, and he did gain a couple medals from that. That is actually where he met my grandmother, my great grandmother. And then the picture on the right is him at his ranch when he was older. So they met in England, and while he was stationed over there, they got married June 5th of 1943. So this is actually their wedding photo. And once the war was over, they actually came back to Idaho to live with my grandpa. So my great grandma is English, and she came over here after the war. This is kind of the timeline that we talked about. The World War II was over in 1945, so they moved from England to Idaho. And then in the 1960s-ish, my grandma and her other sibling were both born. But some fun facts so this is my grandma and her family, like when we're out of the picture. But my grandma, when she came over, she had a really hard time, and I didn't know this. She had a really hard time when she first came into America because his family didn't treat her like super great because she was from a different country. Eventually they would get along, but for a long time they didn't get along, so she struggled a lot with that. And then my great grandpa also did have a brother. I forgot to mention that at the very his slide, but I think it's important. He did have a brother. Unfortunately, he was actually murdered. He was stabbed to death in World War II in New York City. So, my great grandpa, he's no longer alive, but he had only one sibling, so that was his only sibling. So, sorry. He was the only male sibling. He has, I believe, three other sisters. But yeah, so this is my grandmother and kind of like her like my great grandparents. So they migrated from England to Rose Lake. So that's where a lot of my family stems from. So I would totally use this in my classroom when we're talking about like different cultures, or heritage, like Chinese culture, Indian culture, or like any of them. And I would have my students develop. They could pick from a poem, a map, like a poster board, a slideshow, kind of like what I did, and I would have them kind of research. But I would also throw in the aspect that if they don't have their family due to adoption or stuff like that, I would have them just pick someone that they're really close to and have them research them so we can be fair to everybody. But these are the two standards that would be covered, 2.1 and 1.2. And I would have them present this in front of the class with the information that they got. I would require that their posters or everything includes their family name, some information about their family. I would have them, if they could, bring in an object that they think is close and represents like nothing like priceless or valuable, but something that's valuable to them, and show that. And we would have a party celebrating everybody's ancestors. And so we make it into a fun event where you go up and you do present what you have. And then we would just kind of have, we would have snacks and just kind of a good time. It's just kind of like a, hey, this is what I want to tell you about my family. So I think that's it. Perfect. Thank you.